Unknown caller. Unknown caller. Unknown caller.
Kelly, is everybody present? I don't have everybody in squares.
I believe so.
Let me just double check. I think so.
Okay, because I can't see Tony or Lisa, but they're probably here.
Tony and Lisa are both here. Nori and Jenny, you and Terry, Lori and Joe. Let's see, is Joe Schalberger here?
Okay. He's asking, he's the one who's calling. I gotta send him the link. I didn't know he was involved. Let me do what I gotta do.
All right, sorry.
Okay.
That's okay. We'll sit tight for a minute.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Kelly. You can let me know when Joe's on and then we'll start.
Will do.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'm here, Kathleen.
Okay, great. Welcome, Joe. Everybody's present? Patty, has the agenda been posted according to law?
Yes.
Okay, let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay. Patty, is there any public comment on the agendized items only?
Yes, there are 4. And
Okay.
going
Is
to read
Michelle
them.
going to be reading those?
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
I wasn't sure if you were going to read any like introduction to the
Oh,
like.
sorry. Yes,
okay.
I need to read. I'm out of sorts. I'm not in my usual spot. Okay, so public comments for agendized items only are available for submission. They were available from 3:30 to 4 at the link. At this time, members of the public will have the opportunity to speak to the board on items on the agenda only. The Brown Act prohibits the board from engaging in discussion on any item that is not agendized. The board welcomes your comments, but understand that during public comment, the board will listen and not comment in return. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes in order to provide others an opportunity to speak. No person may abdicate their 3 minutes to another speaker, and a maximum of 21 minutes is allotted to each subject matter. And the board will require all speakers to adhere to these requirements. Okay,
Okay,
there you go, Michelle. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Okay, this first comment is from Daniel Hadsall. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, today I am here to challenge the argument that it is necessary to decrease the science graduation requirement to 2 years to improve college and career readiness. U.S. education faces challenges producing enough graduates to fill available jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. According to the National Science Foundation, NSF, employment in science and engineering professions grows faster than the workforce, currently representing about 5% of the total workforce. The median salary for science and engineering workers is $85,390, more than double the median salary for all U.S. workers. Women and people of color are underrepresented in science and engineering professions. Science instruction also lays the foundation for many careers that are technical and vocational in nature, the so-called skilled technical workforce. The electrician needs instruction in the basics of electrical theory, and the HVAC repairman should know chemistry. According to the NSF, skilled technical workers now represent about 12% of the total workforce and hold a median salary of $45,000 in 2017, which was slightly higher than the national median salary. 5 years ago, the district embarked on a process to adopt the Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS. The NGSS were the result of a national science reform movement to produce greater scientific literacy and more equitable educational outcomes by decreasing barriers to access. A fundamental assumption of the new standards was that all students should receive instruction in all standards, the so-called all students, all standards mandate. This assumption recognized that non-college bound students were often tracked out of the sciences. In our district, the science reform agenda appears to have collided head-on with the career readiness movement. The career readiness movement has been spurred on by those wishing to see better post-secondary employment opportunities for students. The state, through its dashboard metrics, seems to have taken a hands-off approach, letting the districts decide whether to focus efforts on improving educational outcomes in the sciences or in career tech. Several districts in our county have done both, seeking to maximize the number of students instructed in all science standards while creating maximum opportunities for students to complete CTE pathways. Several of these such districts have implemented 3-year science graduation requirements. In some cases, districts have switched to a 90-minute block schedule in which students complete an entire year-long course in a semester. Additionally, many of these districts have expanded their definitions of vocational education to include more STEM-oriented CTE pathways. Examples of such pathways include a health careers pathway or an aerospace engineering pathway. In any case, we should be clear-eyed that reducing our science graduation requirement to 2 years will decrease our science enrollment at a time when recent science reforms assume that all students will receive instruction in the full complement of sciences, including biology, chemistry, earth sciences, and physics. Whether we choose to have a 2-year or a 3-year science requirement is ultimately a reflection of our values. Do we believe that all students deserve the fullest delivery of the sciences for STEM career opportunities and for participation in the skilled technical workforce? Or do we believe that it is more important to expand opportunities for students to explore career pathways for post-secondary employment? With some compromise and creative thinking, we can do both. Okay, this next comment is from Dennis Soar. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, district administration. My name is Dennis Soar. This is my 11th year teaching, and this is my 4th with the district. I currently teach advanced biology, advanced physics, and AP Physics 1. I'm here to advocate for 3 years required in science. The passage of the Next Generation Science Standards requires that all students in the state are taught the standards of earth science, biology, chemistry, and physics. If the language, 2 years required, 3 years recommended, is left unchanged, then our enrollment in science will drop. When I first started to teach advanced physics, the school had 3 classes of advanced physics and 4 classes of physics NGSS. Currently, our school has a total of 2 sections of AP Physics 1, 5 sections of advanced physics, and 16 sections of physics NGSS. With teachers, counselors, and administrators advocating for a 3rd year of science, we have been able to grow the physics program. I understand the concern within the schedule for CTE and BAPA. However, in the 21st century, a well-rounded science education is extremely important for success in all areas of study. With a dramatically changing media environment, challenging economic and social climates, shifting relationships between citizens and policymakers, and an evolving understanding of democracy, science stands as a ready tool to help combat modern difficulties. Physics is a class that greatly enhances the education of those students in both the Construction and Engineering Academy here at Lincoln High. By studying classical mechanics and physics, students in a CTE program can apply the concepts learned with these classes to their CTE program. The next generation science standards were written with 21st century skills as a backbone. Skills such as asking questions, planning and carrying investigation to answer those questions, and to construct explanation are among some of these skills. These 21st century skills are more important to students now than ever before. They not only provide a framework for successful learning in the classroom, but ensure students can thrive in a world where change is constant and learning never stops. And they are also tremendously important for our nation's well-being. Finally, the authentic feedback that I get from students is invaluable. I have many former students from my advanced physics class that are currently taking AP Physics 1. Without the 3-year science requirement, those students would have never taken the class. I do urge that you consider the skills required for our changing future and that we can change the language from 2 years required, 3 years recommended to 3 years required. Okay. This next comment is from Amy Weiser. Dear board members, during my interview for Lincoln High School in July 2017, I was informed that Lincoln High School had adopted the 3-year Next Generation Science Standards. Thanks. It's cut off. I cannot read with that. This one says, let's see if I can. Patty, I'm not sure if you can. Oh, there we go. I got it. Let's see here. I may reread something just so I make sure I don't miss anything. I was informed that Lincoln High School had adopted the 3-year Next Generation Science Standards model the year before. That entire school year, it was conveyed to freshmen that year that it was expected that they took 3 years of science. In the course catalog approved by the board, it clearly showed diagrams and verbiage where students had choices provided for meeting the 3 years of science they were expected to take. In the following year since my hire, there have been very unclear expectations for students in the need for 2 or 3 years of science. In a meeting last winter, it was informed to the science department that one reason for not adopting the 3-year course model was to let students out of the 3rd year of science in order to meet the requirements of classes in Engineering and Construction Academy. Many of the classes within the Engineering and Construction Academy are having lessons like building Rube Goldberg machines and other NGSS aligned standards, and lessons that are also taught with the NGSS physics class. Instead of doing away with the 3rd year requirement, Lincoln should be having the Engineering and Construction Academy develop and align current courses that integrate the NGSS and math requirements so students can fulfill the NGSS standards set by the state they need to cover before graduation without repeating standards. Tracy High has done this by developing a diverse set of classes that integrate the NGSS requirements into classes already required in the Agricultural and Science Academy. Antica has done this by incorporating the 3-year NGSS requirements into pathway choices for students, and I feel that Lincoln should be doing the same. Instead of decreasing the standards that students need to meet to graduate below those suggested by the state, Lincoln School District should be developing a diverse set of classes that incorporate all the standards to meet the diverse needs and interests of all students. As current world events show, it is more important than ever that students have a strong background in science, preparing them to be informed citizens in a democracy and knowledgeable consumers. It is important that all students have a solid K-12 science education that covers all standards for all students. The NGSS standards have been researched, and it is important to understand that the science practices in the Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS, as defined by the National Research Council, NRC, include the critical thinking and communication skills that students need for post-secondary success and citizenship in a world fueled by innovation and technology. The development of the NGSS standards are backed by years of research by the National Research Council on how students learn effectively. Cross-cutting skills and knowledge skills need. Why would Lincoln School Board ignore this research and not adopt the NGSS 3-year model as a graduation requirements? Thank you, Amy Weiser, LHS Biology. Okay. This next comment is from Robert Harper. If I can get to it. I can see the name, I can't see the comment. There we go. Yeah, I can.
Hold on.
Yeah, I can see the name, but it appears to be, I have Robert Harper's name, but it appears to be the same comment I just read that's signed by Amy.
Let me see if I can get to it. Hold on one second.
It should be number 41.
Okay.
Michelle, I see the same thing you do.
Okay. I guess if Robert would like to forward me, if Robert's watching and wants to forward it to me in an email, I can try to read it that way. Let's see.
I'm just looking to see if I have it.
Yeah, I don't have it. He has not emailed it to me.
Okay.
Just make sure or not. Yeah, I don't see anything, any text written.
Okay.
I suppose if we get it late, we can always forward it to the board.
Correct.
Okay.
Maybe that was their intention to submit that one together.
Maybe that was it. Although it is signed, thank you, Amy Weiser, LHS Biology, is at the bottom of both of the ones that have Robert's name on it. So.
Okay. We'll reach out to him and get his comments and get them shared with the board.
Okay. So we will get those at a in the next couple days.
And,
Okay.
and Michelle, if they come through your email, let us know.
Okay, I will do.
Okay.
Thanks for reading those, Michelle.
Yep.
Okay. Any other public comments?
None.
None? Okay. So 2.01, college and career readiness.
Okay. Thank you very much. So welcome. Today we're here to share some information and discuss college and career readiness in Lincoln Unified School District. This is a board study session only. We are not asking the board to take action on any items. I do anticipate that subsequent items will be brought forward at a regular board meeting for action at a later time. We have two goals in addressing this topic. Number one, to align our board policies, our course catalogs, and our practice with regard to graduation requirements. And number two, to assure that all students in Lincoln Unified School District leave high school, college, and/or career ready. California Education Code requires that each school district provide a course of study that provides an opportunity for those pupils to attain entry-level employment skills in business or industry upon graduation from high school. Districts are encouraged to provide all pupils with a rigorous academic curriculum that integrates academic and career skills, incorporates applied learning in all disciplines, and prepares all pupils for high school graduation and career entry. You will recall that we brought several related items to you for approval last year. There was much public comment and an agreement to gather further information and allow for further discussion. At that time, it was with regard to science and PE. Last year, Lori engaged in a process with all stakeholders, analyzing the California dashboard and the data as it pertains to Lincoln High School. That discussion revealed obstacles that our students face on their path to graduation and the impact that those obstacles have on college and career readiness. Over time, for whatever reason, our board policies and our course catalog documents have gotten out of sync. We will share with you recommended changes to these board policies as recommended by CSBA and legal counsel. We will share with you our current graduation requirements, those of neighboring districts, and the requirements for graduation in California. We'll review the documents provided to you in preparation for today's meeting and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your participation and the opportunity to engage in this discussion with you today. If no one minds, I think what I'm going to recommend is that Patty not share her screen, and then we'll all be able to see a larger view of each other's faces as we engage in this dialogue. It feels a little funky to look at these tiny little spaces. I'm hoping we'll have some exchange. Is that better for folks? Okay, great. Okay, so first I'm going to, and this is intended to be, you know, a interactive experience. So while several of us are going to share information and present information to you, go through various documents, please feel free if you have questions to, you know, raise a real or virtual hand and stop us so we can answer questions as we go along the way. The first thing I think we're going to do is Lisa's going to walk you through our board policy proposals. And again, just to remind you that we're sharing these as a read this time, not for action tonight, but we will be bringing them back for action at a subsequent board meeting. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Mute. I'm
Yep.
going to start again. I'm going to start with high school board policy 6146.1, high school graduation requirements. So as you could see in the draft, there's been quite a few updates to this board policy since it was last revised in 2005. With the elimination of the high school exit exam, there's been some changes and other changes that were further towards the end of the policy. I'm going to focus right now, though, on the course requirements and the changes to language that are there, which are in alignment with the state's graduation requirements. So the first one is for English, and we have listed to two, where is it? Sorry. 4 courses in English. This does exceed the state's current requirement, which is 3 years, but it was what we had in our policy previously, and it's what's been in our course catalogs. So we left that there. The next one, 2 courses in mathematics, and there's an explanation of what those courses should be. That aligns with both of our course catalogs and with state requirements, but I will note that 3 years are required for CSU and UC, and 4 years are recommended for UC. The next one, 2 courses in science, including biological and physical sciences. That's a little change in language from life to biological. We've had 2 listed there before, and this aligns with the graduation requirements in both catalogs, although the Lincoln High School catalog references 3 years of enrollment. Then 3 courses in social studies, including United States history and geography, world history, culture and geography, a 1-semester course in American government and civics, and a 1-semester course in economics. So our previous board policy was also 33 courses, but it omitted US history and instead replaced it with psychology, sociology, health, and world geography. But the state has combined geography with United States history, world history, and so we are recommending to adopt the same language as the state for social science. Then we also have the addition of language for a CTE course that is aligned to curriculum standards and the framework to be counted as an elective course, which I believe has been practiced, but was not listed in our graduation requirement as being an option or towards graduation. And then the next part, we are leaving a 1 semester course of health. And we discussed physical education last year. The state requires 2 courses in physical education unless the student has been otherwise exempted pursuant to education code. And so I'm going to refer you to the board policy behind that, because BP 6142.7 is also in need of revision. But if you go to the last page in that policy, it actually did identify that when a student is in high school, engaged in a regular school-sponsored interscholastic athletes program carried on wholly or partially after regular school hours, that is considered an exemption. So this is something we've had in board policy before. The wording changes are minor, but the intent is the same in this update. And we were not necessarily putting this into practice. And so that's the reason for our discussions in these areas, is to align our practice with our policies and our catalogs moving forward. So are there any questions about these policy updates?
Terry, I think you're on mute.
Can you tell me why they changed from credits to courses?
I don't know the reason for the change in that language. It was we typically use the language that's in our recommended by CSBA, and they don't always tell us the reason for the wording change.
I think courses is a more common use than credits across the state.
It can be confusing for kids as far as a semester course versus a year-long course. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
I certainly agree to do both.
Yeah. Or I've actually seen language where it says, and I can't remember if it's here or in the state document and the state requirements, that unless it's specified, it's considered a full year course. So if you look at health, it says 1 semester course of health. And in the history social science requirements, it says 1 semester course in economics, 1 semester course in American government. So we could put the same type of footnote that unless specified, it's a full year course.
Nori.
Thank you. And thank you for the study session and all the material in advance. It was fun to wade through. So I'm looking at the first page of the draft policy there under course requirements, just under English, it says in mathematics. And I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. And then I have a question if I am. At least 1 mathematics course or a combination of 2 mathematics courses shall meet or exceed state academic content standards for Algebra 1 or Mathematics 1. And so it sounds like the state has a standard for Algebra 1 or Mathematics 1, and you can do that in 1 or 2 courses. And if you do it in 1, you still need to take a second one. Is that correct? Can somebody help me understand what are the state standards beyond Algebra 1 or Mathematics 1 that would be, would necessitate then a second course in mathematics if we're meeting the state standards in, say, 1 course rather than 2? And I would be glad for anybody to kind of enlighten me there. Did my question make sense?
It does as I go back and read it, but I'm not sure it makes sense in my head. So give me just 1 minute to kind of
I'm processing it.
reiterate.
Well, yeah, okay.
It may just be the way that's
So the way I read this, and maybe I was interpreting from my knowledge, is that students are required to take 2 courses in mathematics in high school. Some students take the Math 1 course or Algebra 1 course as 8th graders. Those students would still need to take 2 additional courses in high school. So it might be Math 2 and Math 3.
Okay.
I also believe it references some high schools teach the Algebra 1, Math 1 course over the course of 2 years. They don't have a precursor course like our general math course. They actually take the course that meets that state requirement and teach it over a 2-year span of time.
Okay, that explains the 1 or 2 years then. The requirement, is that a state requirement or Lincoln High requirement?
The 2-year requirement?
Yeah.
That's a state requirement.
Thank you. Okay, I was just trying to figure out if they met the standards in 1 year or in the 8th grade, why are we requiring? And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, if we were going above and beyond here, why not other places? So I was just trying to figure that out. Thank you. That
2
answers
math
it for me.
courses in high school is the state requirement, and one of those must be akin to Algebra 1.
Well, that's what it seemed to me, just as personal experience with my own kids, but I just want to make sure I still had it correct in my head. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking the clarification. Any other questions related to the board policies? Concern?
I'm intrigued. I had asked you about this earlier, why the board policy never had US history in it before when it was a state requirement.
We all asked each other the same question when we went back to revisit the board policies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, it's not uncommon for us to learn that a board policy needs to be revised, and we realize, oh my gosh, maybe it wasn't correct in the first place, or it was misinterpreted, or we've somehow gotten out of sync with the board policy. So it's always
No,
really,
I would bet you it's just someone that's forgotten to type it in because it's been there for millennium.
it's very possible. It's always been the practice.
Yes.
So, Nora, you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say it may be one of those things that's so self-evident that you don't need to put it down.
Yeah.
But the other question then I have is the exemptions that are made for physical education, I know can be made for a variety of reasons. And now, if I understand correctly, we're talking about adding athletics or participation in athletics as long as a certain percentage related to school, et cetera. Is that correct? And is that consistent with what other districts are doing? It seems wise to me. I mean, the students probably are working harder in their sports than they are in phys ed classes, perhaps, though maybe not as broadly. Is that consistent with what other schools are doing?
Lori, do you want to share what you learned when you were investing?
Yeah, I would be glad to share. First of all, it's semi-consistent with what we've been doing. We have X sports. I don't know if anybody on the board has had experience with their students doing X sports, where if you went to a karate studio or a dance studio or were on a travel baseball team, if you had competition, you could fill out paperwork and get credit for high school PE. What brought this conversation up is the equity issue, that those are students whose families can pay for extracurricular sports, where our athletes who are here doing sports on campus work out equally as much and compete free of charge right here at home at school. So yes, surrounding schools do that, but everybody has the one underlying piece is that as a freshman taking PE, the students have to pass 5 of 6 of the areas of the fitnessgram. And so showing that they're athletically, physically fit, can pass the fitnessgram, gives them the opportunity sometime over the course of the rest of high school to use their high school athletics to get what other students have been doing with exports.
Thank you very much. That's helps me to understand it. It seems to make sense. And I especially appreciate the sensitivity to issues of equity. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the board policies before we move on? We're not going to revisit the PE board policy. We just wanted you to see that there are updates and that language actually already existed in the board policy. So next, I'd like to invite Lori to walk us through the research she did looking at graduation requirements in surrounding districts.
So just gonna, if you want to take a look at the page under graduation requirements that has all of the regional districts across the top, I think the first thing to take into account before we talk through it is that we're dealing with different schedules. So in some cases, it seems like people have more courses folded into their graduation requirement, but just notice that anybody who takes a 4x4 block, those students take 8 courses a year. and Lincoln High School students, anybody with a 6-period day takes 6 courses a year. And there's one district listed that actually has a 7-period day. So it's not quite apples to apples, but it gives you just a feel for what people in the area are doing. It's very consistent in the Valley. 4 years of English, which we already talked about, was unchanged. Math varies.
Hey, Lynn,
Yeah.
regarding the length of day, the number of periods in a day, obviously Modesto has a 7-period day. I see the 4x4 blocks. I see the 6-period day, and we're listed as a 6-period day, but we have a 7-period day. I know the 7th period is optional.
Yes, well, the standard day at Lincoln High School and the way teacher schedules are built around a 6-period day. That kind of is another one of our equity issues that we've been discussing, is who can and does take a 7-period day. It's a rather homogeneous group of students that does that. So I would like to have us continually looking for ways within our 6-period day, which is the standard, and not having to take an extra hour of school, to make sure that we can meet all students' needs. Yeah.
But we're not considering changing the option of a 7th period, are we?
Not at.
Go ahead, Lori, sorry.
Not at this time. I mean, that adds a whole nother dimension, because that would mean teachers taught more periods. I mean, that's big.
It's very big. That's why I would be concerned about it, because I know this is later in the meeting, but it's really hard for students to include visual and performing arts, whether they're taking CTE or CSU's UC requirements, or both. It's really hard to fit that enrichment in their schedule, which we know is more than enrichment. It's academically important. It's really hard to fit the VAPA in there without a 7th period. So I don't want to run off the rails, but that's why I asked the question about the schedule, because I was,
Yeah, it's fine. At this point in time, that's never been part of our discussion. If that was something someday the board wanted to take on, that's great. But right now, that's not what we've been talking about.
Okay, thank you.
7-period day has been through a variety of iterations, as you may know, from 0 to 6 to 1 to 7 to 0 to, so yeah.
When I was there, it was an 8-period day.
So if we just look at math, it's pretty consistent. One of the districts with a 4x4 block has the same requirement as us, plus a math elective, and they have different math courses that students could take for electives or enrichments. Elk Groves is interesting because it's a 6-year combo between math and science. So a student can choose to take the extra year of math or the extra year of science as student choice. Science that was included is pretty consistent, with the exception of the Tracy schools have 3 years of science. And as Amy listed in her letter earlier, actually they have electives for science built in their ag programs. Social science is also pretty consistent with what we've seen. The inconsistency in researching area schools is just where health lands. Health lands in different departments, sometimes under other. We found schools that have biology teachers teach it. We found schools that had it in social studies. Some people still have an old driver's ed class. So that was just where health landed, was inconsistent in the area. 2 years of PE was pretty consistent. Most schools offer the waiver that we were talking about. And then it is also consistent with the policy that Lisa reviewed with you, foreign language, VAPA. Some districts offer CTE in that area and some don't, but the state says CTE ed code was amended, so CTE should fall in that category. So I don't know if that means that those districts have an updated policy or if they don't offer CTE programming in those areas. So this is from doing research. I don't know if you have any questions just about this set of comparisons.
It's a very, very helpful grid. As I was reading the beginning of my materials, I was hoping this existed. So this is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, this is very helpful. I think you ought to put the health in ours also. I see quite a few of them that have it under other.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's moved down below to where other courses can be added in the template for the board policy.
There has been a lot of conversation about kind of what to do with and about health. As you know, there are some specific requirements related to health that we feel strongly about. Well, there's an ed code requirement, but there's also some components of the health course that we feel strongly about and teachers feel strongly about students receiving. It's tricky because we don't have a lot of semester courses. And so where it lands in conjunction to other types of course offerings is challenging. And until very recently, at least in recent years, we haven't had health teachers available to teach health. So we are continuing to look at where health could best be fit into the course content and course schedule, who best to teach it. And the other challenge about our health course is it's not a UC A to G eligible course. There are, in our research, we looked to see, are there some schools who have such a course? And there are some various iterations of courses that might meet that requirement, but something that definitely needs further study. And we are continuing to look at that. I know Lori has spent a lot of time really looking at the variety of ways that we might address the need to provide health.
I think that the only place that we found health courses meeting A to G were schools that have health-related CTE programs, like if they have, medical nursing, some kind of focus, that health becomes embedded in one of their pathway courses. Or on Apex, because when students move, which is an online platform, when students move into California from out of state, and they are older than a freshman, they've missed our opportunity to take the freshman health course. And so there is an online course for that situation.
But it doesn't include the HIV/AIDS curriculum, which we're required to provide to students once in middle grades and once in high school. So we've also looked at where health is embedded in other A to G courses that have to do with community-based learning and other topics that are more maybe timely for students that health could be embedded in.
So more to come on that topic. The next thing I wanted Lori to spend a little time on is to walk you through the college and career readiness documents that she put together after her research last year. Those documents are just prior, the 3 pages just prior to the career technical education tab.
Nori, did you have a question before we moved on? I thought
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. Just to back on that chart, it was interesting to me that of all the school districts, the relationship between math and the sciences, in only one case were the number of math courses going to exceed the number of the number of science courses exceeding the number of math courses. So you have generally 2 math courses or 3 math courses and then 2 science courses, or, and I flipped the page now, but, or in the case of Elk Grove, I believe 4 and 2, 4 math, 2 science, or 3 and 3. And I think that's indicative of the sort of precursor nature, right? That since the sciences are a quantitative field, at least as described in the article that Mr. Hadsel to me, and then I saw later as well. You've got to have that language in order to proceed in the sciences. I was just wondering if we had any insight into why Tracy, I think, if I remember correctly, why Tracy had that flipped. They say 2 math and 3 sciences. Do we have any idea why that is?
I do not.
Yeah, I do not.
Probably what would be a satisfactory answer today. I might have some anecdotal information, but I don't think it's useful today.
Okay, all right. I was just projecting. Maybe they were thinking that was the way to satisfy sort of next generation science standards, NGSS, and that was probably the only way they could think to do it. But okay, all right. Thank you.
Well, and I think we should note too, it's phased in. So the first graduating class required to have 3 years of science will be 2022.
Thank you. I didn't notice that. Okay, thanks. It was curious to me. I just didn't know if we had any insight.
Yeah, and with respect to phased in, also with Stockton Unified, because they're moving towards having the UC requirements, UC-CSU requirements be their graduation requirements. So that's also on their website. Also linked, I think, on Daniel's notes was you can see there's a whole lengthy phase-in process as well. So the colorful college and career readiness handout that's on front is when the California dashboard is determined. They have very specific targeted ways that they deem a student to be college or career ready upon graduation. And so there are the 8 ways that a student could be deemed prepared for college or career ready. One of those doesn't apply to us because we are not an international baccalaureate school. So that is, so really for Lincoln High School and Village Oaks High School, there are 7 ways that a student can be deemed college and career ready. Last year, when we were doing data analysis at the high school with school site council, our leadership committee, our ELAC parents, our principals advisory students, all of the stakeholder groups that we looked at, Lincoln Unified's, Lincoln High's dashboard, is that college and career readiness was the one place that kind of caught people off guard, that we were only in the 30%. And why, when we offer all of these very rich college preparatory classes and very rich CTE classes, how come we're not graduating a larger percentage of students college or career ready? So in the next round of meetings with those groups of stakeholders, because each of those groups meets monthly, we did, it's the next page for you. It has a dark blue band across the top. It says analysis of LHS college and career readiness. And what we did as a process, it took multiple iterations of meetings, was took each of those 7 ways that Lincoln High School could prepare students for being college and career ready. And for each row is one of the ways, and we talked as collectively as stakeholders, what is a support we offer? So how do we support students meeting that pathway? And then we had some very honest and sometimes uncomfortable conversations about what are some roadblocks we're putting in kids' way that they can't meet that particular path to college and career readiness. So this is how this document evolved. It had, our leadership was in on it, which includes counselors, and we had teachers. We've shared this at staff meeting, and again this fall as we were coming up to have this conversation. So when looking at the list, if you, on the 3rd page of this document is kind of where we started the problem solving phase. It took a while to get through the analysis, and then it's like, it was kind of the root cause. Well, why is that happening? Well, why is that happening? Well, why is that happening? Which led us to realize that one, it's not possible to simultaneously complete a 3-year CTE pathway and UC A to G without taking a 7-period day. And then we had much discussion about the equity of the 7-period day, who does take a 7-period day. Part of our study was just looking at who can and does take the AP and the advanced math classes, because UCCSU does require students getting through. When we were studying last year was Math 11, but now that we're in line with the state documents, it'll be Math 3. And then below that are suggestions, and these suggestions came from teachers or parents or students. All suggestions that came out of the process were validated and documented. That doesn't mean we're in support of doing all these lists of things, or it's not a checklist that we're going to follow, but these are suggestions that came from all of the different groups who spent probably 3 iterations of meetings going through and doing this study. I'm proud that some of these we've already accomplished, and with support of the board. We did the dual credit Delta Early Start. I think we talked about that at the when we presented the school plans, is well underway. We removed a prerequisite for first year language classes, which was getting in the way for a lot of students. For years and years and years, it was customary at Lincoln High School, you had to have a B in 8th grade math to take foreign language as a freshman. And so that we had students not starting along the college prep pathway because they didn't have the math requirement to start their language. And we removed that, and we actually have 1 full teacher's worth of Spanish sections over what we had a year ago. So we're already seeing, and that group is much more diverse than we saw a year ago. So all things are great on that front, and which a few below that is add a Spanish teacher. So we did have enough FTE that we ended up with, we have 1 more Spanish 1 teacher than we had a year ago. That more CTE classes, again, when we presented, when we had the, when we looked at our school plan, is we did get those extra CTE courses articulated with Delta. I'll repeat what I said that night, is that Delta is articulating a lot of CTE and not articulating core courses anymore like they were 10 years ago. When I was articulating a calculus class, that was just the norm. Now none of the classes, the math science classes from here are articulated to Delta, because they've changed their philosophy on that. And so we almost have them all articulated, still working on it, and are planning to do some kind of on-site articulation event, because we also realized through this study, one reason our students qualified but weren't counting as college and career ready is that they were taking the Delta classes and then the year ended, and they weren't enrolling at Delta, starting a transcript so they could do the articulation process of moving the credits over. So our College and Career Center will plan an event this spring where we'll get everybody enrolled in Delta, and we'll get on parchment and right there and do everybody's transcripts, requests, and we will hold an articulation party to get all their credits moved over to Delta College and get them started. So this is part of the problem solving, but the one thing that we do notice is that, you know, with graduation requirements, we just need to be super thoughtful about providing space for kids to take their band or art class that is their passion and might become a career field, or their CTE or different, whatever their interests or whatever makes them want to come to school and maybe leads them to what they do with their future. So that was our process.
Questions or comments for Lori about any of those? Nori.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. There's a lot of great work here, and I'm deeply appreciative to all the people who put it together. And so first note, just thank you for preparing all this, and not preparing it for the board, but sharing it with the board, because I know you prepared it for the students and families and parents and your staff and faculty. And so, you know, it's clear that you're all in the process of working diligently to try and increase the college and career readiness. There are kind of a couple of ways to do that. One is to sort of, you know, you can reduce the number of positive COVID tests by reducing the number of tests overall. And you can also reduce the number by increasing social distancing, et cetera. And so I just kind of wonder if you could say, or maybe somebody else could, Lori, I was thinking of you, but maybe Joe, or sort of what's the philosophy we're taking here? Because one way to do this would be to sort of, basically hit only that note, right? And so all of our resources would be going toward that metric. And I'm just wondering what the trade-offs are, and if you could kind of give me a minute or two, Précis, on how that works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think Kelly stated the basic philosophy at the beginning was that every student should leave Lincoln High School, Village Oaks High School, CPIA. Everybody should leave prepared to do some next step. And whether it be college or career, we should have all the students ready to do that. So in the cleanup that Lisa proposed of graduation policy, I don't think really there are any trade-offs right now. I mean, I think this is just a study session to start thinking about, how passionate are we about it, and what are we willing to do to give kids those opportunities. And at this point in time, I don't think we're really giving up anything.
I do think in some cases, the lack of clarity or the discrepancy between the documents and the practice and the policy is confusing for people. And it creates a little bit of chaos, and people aren't sure how to advise students or students how to make a choice. So that sometimes puts students in a challenging situation where they're faced with a obstacle that maybe doesn't need to exist. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of valuable information in this analysis here. And so I think, like Lori said, having all the stakeholder groups engaged in coming up with this is key. And then, sharing it in some type of other format with students so they can see these are your options. You can go CTE, you can go AP, you can, obviously this is all embedded in their counseling, but the format of the chart I don't know, I'm a visual person. So to see that these are your different options and this is how you get there. It probably exists, but I just happen to like this format.
I just don't want to be disingenuous to a student and say you could be, a welder when you leave Lincoln High School. It only takes a 3-year pathway, but you don't have 3 holes in your schedule in 3 years to do that. I guess I just want to be real with the kids, if it means, if I want to say to the kid, okay, it means for your junior year, you're going to have to take a 7th class, and whether some of our kids who follow those pathways are a little disenchanted with school. And so we've got to be careful about that too. But I just think we need to be honest. And once we know what we're working with, we'll build model schedules for kids and say, if this is what you want to do, this is what your 4 years is going to look like. And go from there. I think we're really clear if you're going straight to a UC, what your 4 years looks like. I think we have a very clear vision of what that is. It's a little murkier with kids who are artistic kids, our VAPA kids, our CTE kids.
Lori, I want to thank you for that comment about clarity, right? For actually being truthful in our advertising, because colleges are doing this all the time, which is, you can get done in 4 years, but then you discover they don't actually offer the courses you need, right? I have a niece who was circling getting her BSN, and all she needed was 1 course in anatomy, and she couldn't get it in about 6 or 8 different region-wide colleges, community colleges, because they weren't offering it. So that's really important that we, if we advertise that you can do this, that you ought to be able to do this. So good, thank you, I appreciate that.
I think the other thing that we've, probably known, but uncovered pretty clearly and have spent a lot of time talking about is our need to do a better job pre-high school, informing students about the options that would be available to them in high school, both with regard to CTE, but also with regard to science and math. We need to do a better job assuring that students come to high school ready to take rigorous math and science courses, having had exposure to all of the NGSS science content prior to getting to high school, so that they do recognize what the available opportunities can and might be for them. So that's something we are definitely, again, talking more about and trying to understand ways that we could better inform our younger students and provide them a wider, broader awareness of what will ultimately be available to them when they get to the high school. Because learning about it when they're registering for their 9th grade courses is far too late.
I just appreciate the struggle, how we are struggling to make a way for our students and families to have choices and to make those choices widely available. And it's really hard. I mean, Lori's described it very well. It's very hard balancing the incredibly varied needs and desires of our student population is really hard. And I just appreciate that I'm not hearing a one-size-fits-all approach, because that doesn't work with our students. And that's not what I hear in my community that I represent, that we want a one-size-fits-all. But not having a one-size-fits-all is really hard. Having a truly comprehensive high school is really hard. So thank you for the struggle and trying to do it right. And yeah, continuing, all this research is very helpful. I appreciated the 2 different articles that were included. They were very helpful. The comparative information from other districts is very helpful. So thank you for the struggle, I guess.
Yeah, and I would just add the same thing that I heard both Jenny and Nori say, just about how important it is to try to serve everyone, even someone who's not planning on a 4-year university as their path after high school. And just, again, the struggles with counseling and preparing schedules and so forth. Some of you know my wife is finishing at a state school. I should probably leave unnamed. Because it's been really, really frustrating. Every semester, they'll say, oh, you need these 3 classes, but it turns out 2 of them are offered at the exact same time, same day, same time, I mean, same everything. And this is happening every semester. And so I was even thinking that someone needed to develop some kind of a Yelp for universities that you could rate these kinds of things. And maybe it exists, I don't know, but it's probably one of the most frustrating things in learning is when someone says, this is your path, and you get on it and you think you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and then that's not the path anymore. And so I think it's really important for us to make that very clear. And so I appreciate the work that is being done to make that clear. And I think it's hard in doing those things. It's hard to make everyone really happy with the choices that we make. But again, kind of considering all the options, I think we're on the right track. So I appreciate the work that everyone's done to this point.
I have to echo what everybody said. This is a huge challenge, and the fact that you are considering the needs of all our students is to be commended. And I appreciate that very, very much. And I know that all those students that are choosing a different path after high school are very appreciative of it. And I think that's what matters, that we try to find a spot for everybody, because we can't pigeonhole them. And so I do appreciate that. And we're not, as I said, it's not one size fits all.
I suppose I'm echoing that same thing. One size doesn't fit all, because teaching sophomores for a long time, their frustration was usually the first and second year, there was not much room at all for anything. And some of them do not come highly motivated, and it's very tough for them to wait for the drum or the choir or the music or whatever it is. And that's what keeps them in school.
Nori.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. I'm just curious, on the chart that is, it's not page number, it's the third page that has the suggestions to increase college and career readiness. So that one right there, that chart.
Yep.
Yeah. So it looks like the percentages that are given for white students, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, and African American are the percentage of students that are in the AP classes or in math, advanced or math 11 plus, which make. I'm wondering, do we have data on what percentage of each subgroup is enrolled or is seeking those courses? So for example, what percentage of white students or Asian students or Hispanic Latino students are enrolled in or seeking AP courses? Not the percentage of the students that are in the course, but the percentage of the subcategory. I asked it is in that really interesting ACT article that gave the breakout by variety of sort of subcategories. That's the metric they were using to sort of compare, right, between subgroups. And so I was just wondering, do we know that information? Do we know how well we're penetrating or reaching various subcategories in our demographics?
I get pretty extensive reports from the College Board with respect to AP because they run a lot of demographics. Definitely, I could pull them and compare them to what the whole population was and look at the subgroups. That's very doable. I have a whole, as we all have all dashboards to the College Board where we can go. There's more information we could ever look at, but I think that's something that we could find for sure.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking even in comparison to other schools or districts, but just simply within our own school district, how well are we doing at reaching out to various subgroups in terms of getting them on board in AP courses or?
Yeah, so they'll give us data on every kid we test, and then we can take the data they give us on how many kids we test in each subgroup, and we can compare it back to our overall population in the subgroup. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know that we need that information anytime soon. It would be interesting to know, are we doing a good job of sort of spreading the word about these opportunities and preparing people for those opportunities? I just was curious. Thank you.
You know, Lori, you may all remember this. I don't know, Lori, if there's any kind of lingering data on this, but we did have a period of time several years ago where we auto-enrolled students into AP courses and, you know, had kind of mixed results in that, struggled to, you know, some kids came in the fall to get their schedule and found that they'd been automatically enrolled in an AP course that they did not request or necessarily desire to take, and provided them with a lot of support, and found some students who were actually able to rise to the challenge of an AP course that they hadn't recognized that skill set in themselves or that aptitude in themselves, but also a lot of kids who really struggled. And I don't know, Lori, can you add any more to that? Do you know kind of the outcome?
First, I just have to say you're bringing me joy because I was one of those teachers that had my class. I vividly remember Debbie Holmrud walking in and telling my students, you thought you enrolled in calculus, but you're in AP calculus. Yeah. And it was the most amazing year. But we do, for the board, annually present AP data. And so we do know our enrollment numbers have stayed actually pretty high and steady. And we constantly have some courses growing while others are shrinking, because I think we have a fixed number of students that are accessing the courses. But that is something that we could find, because I probably have 10 or 12 years of historical data on my computer of enrollments in those classes, and of the enrollment, how many took the AP test, and of the how many took the AP test, what percent passed. I have that.
Okay. I don't know, Joe Hancock, if you have anything you want to add just anecdotally to that conversation. You were there probably through all of that happening.
I think that over time, I feel like some of the barriers have been removed for a lot of the classes, and we've encouraged students to take. I think the AP Computer Science has been a great option because it affords kids a chance to knock out a UC approved D math course, or excuse me, a lab science D, as well as a math requirement. But I mean, I think that, you know, students are, you know, we're trying to push students as much as possible to reach their A through Gs. so they can apply to colleges and, fill out their common applications and all that. So
Thank you. Other comments?
Do we have, I don't know what the rest of the agenda is, but I had another comment here that I just, if we had time, so.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what the rest of the agenda is. I mean, in terms of how much more we have, but so I just wanted to appreciate this idea of opening up opportunities for everyone, right? Which is the reason I think that people were being auto-enrolled in courses, and that gets balanced against then the degree of preparation that people have and the spectrum of students' preparation that the teachers meeting. And Lori, I don't know whether it was a joyous experience for you to have maybe a wider range of students in terms of preparation than you've had in previous, but I know I've sometimes had that wider range, and it can be quite a challenge for the teacher. So it seems to me that those are sort of competing goods, I guess, maybe in some sense.
They had all signed up for calculus when I had it. So it was the exact same wide range that I was used to. It was just the expectation, the finish line changed, and it was amazing. And I would say, even if the pass rate was only, I think 60%, I know, because I got so close to those kids, we went through a little bit of trauma together. So we were bonded forever, that, many of them might not have passed the test, but had gone to college, having taken such a rigorous course, they were ready. And so, that's to me as much of a benefit as getting a 3 or a 4 or a 5 on your AP, is going to college ready to take on your college courses. So, yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to have to do it again there, likely, unless they, test out. I guess what they get a 5 or something.
Yeah.
But it seems to then touch on that point that Kelly was making earlier, which about preparing people for those opportunities a bit earlier, right? So that folks, and not just announcing the opportunities, but then thinking about, how do we go about preparing them a little bit earlier? Because we want to prepare them for a college and career, and then we want to prepare them for a high school in which they can, and then that means middle school and then elementary and pre-K. So it's pushing the whole thing back, I think. And it's, we can't unhitch any piece of it, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think each of the articles that we read had some reference at some point in the articles about the importance of early preparation and access and exposure.
And I would say that specific to math, because if a student comes not on grade level for math, they're going to spend a year where we try to get them up to speed for high school math. And the UCCSU requires 3 years, but that year didn't count. You're getting up to speed. So now we've locked a student into 4 years of math. So our kids who struggle most with math, if they want to go to UC or CSU, have to take 4. And so that's.
And awesome. Then the math has an impact on their science as well.
Correct. A freshman who comes in off grade level with math, so if they are taking a general math class, their science course that year does not count as college preparatory, because you have to simultaneously be enrolled in an Algebra 1 Math 1 level course for the science. So then they're off by 2 classes by having that happen.
Other comments or discussion or questions? That's the bulk of what we had prepared for you tonight. We just wanted to take some time to walk through all this content and provide opportunity for dialogue and discussion, knowing that we will ultimately be bringing back to a board meeting, a regular board meeting for action, to correct some of these things that we think are out of sync. Terry, did you have a comment you were going to make?
No, I was pointing to Jenny because her hand was up.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Just this whole discussion makes me think of our counseling department. And I know that they presented at one of our meetings this past year, how they've been just really ramping up their efforts and in terms of outreach to students and even more interaction with students. And when you think about the complexities of our course catalog with all these different pathways and options available to students, I just wanted to acknowledge them in this process. That's all.
And they are amazing. And sometimes I think when we're talking here about clarification, that's who I have in mind, because the clearer we are for them, the more straightforward their job is. They're not spending time trying to translate what did they mean by that. So, and they've been incredible. All Zoom experts now, those counselors.
Well, and they're the ones often who are meeting and with students and answering the questions and guiding students. And that's, I mean, so really the burden of all this complexity in many ways, you know, is put on their desk.
It's absolutely true. Thank you for recognizing them.
And I think it's been a tremendous help to parents also. Counselors, yes, obviously, but the parents had so many questions and misunderstandings. One of the nicest things that I've heard of, Lori, is the fact that it was digitized. It's on the website. Parents can access things and all. They appreciate that so much.
So since that meeting, we've now linked all the syllabi, the course-alike syllabi, to the course catalog. So when you review it, if you review it electronically, so you can even see the syllabus before you take the course.
I noticed that.
Kudos. Nori?
Yeah, sorry to prolong your evening here. I just have a couple of questions I want to make sure or at some point we're going to be asked to take action on this, and I want to be able to kind of mull this over. And I'm thinking of, I think it was Mr. Hatzel in his comment to the board in open session or public comment. He said, you know, do all students deserve to have the complete science experience? Yes. And I would agree. I think all students should have that opportunity. I'm not sure all students would benefit equally from being forced to do that. And I'm still trying to figure out sort of those two poles. And I guess the question I have, and this then becomes a question of trade-offs. Jenny mentioned the visual and performing arts. You know, I know my own students have had the great experience of working with our science faculty or teachers. And been deeply impressed with their quality and their ability to take students who are not necessarily primarily interested in science, but get them to understand it and to really get behind it. So I guess that what I'm wondering is, so we have the NGSS standards, and we have a desire to offer college and career readiness, and we also have a desire to offer a whole host of pathways through school, including students be interested in things other than math and science, other than STEM, as important as that is. And we have then perhaps some students who might not be prepared to do it simply by either the familial support, which apparently in these articles is quite important, or in their prior preparation. All of that on the one hand, and then we have the question of whether or not a student could do this in 2 courses. Can we meet the science standards in 2 courses, or must we have 3? And if only 2 are required, how is that done? And I know there were 3 options in the one article that were presented. They tended to present 3 or 4 courses. So are we going to be in compliance with the state if we offer just 2? I know that's the standard, but will our courses be configured in such a way that they'll be in compliance?
I don't know, Lori, do you want to answer that or do you want me to answer it? Or do you want to jump in and do it together? So the science model that we've chosen is a 3 course model. It does take 3 courses to complete all of the NGSS standards. So it is true that if a student were to only take 2 science courses, they would not complete all of the NGSS standards. However, the state requirement is not to complete all of the NGSS standards. The state requirement is to complete 2 years of science. It did cause me to, rethink the course model that we've chosen, because there is a model that takes all 4 of the components and gives you a little bit of each of them. But I think that having spent a lot of time listening to our science teachers advocate for science models, I believe the model that we have is the model that is best for our students and the staff that we have. There was some concern initially that we didn't have the credentialed teachers to teach all of the components of the 3 different courses, but we've done I have had nothing to do with it. The high school has done a great job expanding their science staff to include people with all of the correct credentials so that our students do have options. And we have many students who take even 4 years of science. We also have many students who take AP and honors courses, which are not necessarily aligned with the NGSS. So I don't know that I actually answered your question, and Joe and Lori, you may have things to add, but that would be my answer.
Let me sharpen the question. Are we preventing students from taking more sciences in this current scenario?
Absolutely not.
Joe, I see you shaking your head no. So
this allows the flexibility for them to take as many science classes as they want. And those students that aren't necessarily want to go into a science field can take their 2, meet their requirements, and head off to something else. I mean, I think it allows for more flexibility to meet the students' needs, which we talked about earlier. Being a science guy, it'd be great if everybody took 4 years of science, but if that's not your cup of tea, you don't have to do it. You don't have to take 3. You can take 2 and move on to something else.
Okay.
It's amazing to me the large numbers of classes that we do have of students taking 3 years of science already.
Yes. And I had Lori pull for me earlier today. I won't be able to put my fingers on it right now. Maybe she can remember. 37% of our current seniors are taking a 4th year of science. It's a lot of students.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any structural impediment, because all of my kids, our sons, have friends who are in STEM and are deeply appreciative of that. And I want to make sure that we weren't creating a structure that would eliminate that possibility. I also know that my kids ended up in the arts, at least a couple of them have so far. And so I want to make sure we don't foreclose that possibility. And so I'm trying to figure out the competing goods here. And if it's possible for us to provide a system that is going to allow people with both postures to and not to be missing out on either half, right? So everybody's got some arts and sciences, and those who want more of each can do it. So
I think it's precisely the challenge, and I think
I
it's
really want to piggyback. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I really want to piggyback on that, because both of my children were interested in the arts. They both ended up going to 4-year colleges afterwards. One was interested in drama and the other got a degree in sound arts. So I liked the fact that there was a little flexibility, but they did have to take 7 classes to be able to do those things.
Thank you for sharing that.
I also want to comment that in the first article that was in our materials, the author has a lot of concern, appropriately so, regarding students who are either assigned to lower classes or, she says, tracked into lower classes. And I just want to point out that we don't do that. If anything is holding students back from taking science, it's math. That's probably the only factor. Other than that, students are free to take as much science as they want. The only limiting factor that I'm aware of for a student to take as much science as they might want would be math. Am I correct?
Yes, I think students with disabilities and our English learners also face some additional challenges just in terms of their schedule because of the types of supports that they might need. So that can have an impact for those particular populations of students. But the bottom line is students are free to take science every year that they wish, as long as they can fit it in their schedule. I think it's wonderful that we have teachers that are passionate about the content that they teach. That is the best we could hope for. And for them all to be arguing with one another about whether students should take 4 years of their courses is certainly a great thing. But I think it's also really important that we assure that our students have the opportunity to make choices for the course path that they feel passionate about, and also to feel that there is value placed upon those choices as they navigate their way through high school. Okay, is there anything else? Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I really appreciate the conversation today. It was very helpful to us. You asked great questions. It will cause us to continue to think and do more analysis, but we greatly appreciate the opportunity to do this with you today. Yes, thanks everybody. Thank you everybody for all your hard work in putting this presentation together. It's a challenge, and I appreciate and respect all the work that you're doing to make it happen. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Done a great job. Jenny's right, those counselors, they have a lot of, they need to know a lot. So I admire them. They've got a big job ahead of them. And they've helped push out a lot of very successful Lincoln High students and Village Oak students and CPIA students. So kudos to all of them. Okay, there being no further business, I will, the next meeting will be held, regular meeting will be Wednesday, November 4th. And I will officially adjourn this meeting at 5:26. So take care, everybody. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
See you all soon. Take care.
I think
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you all.